Hey everyone, welcome back to Deep Dive with Crispina and myself, Stephen. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, last week we asked a bunch of you to send us some topic ideas. We always ask for feedback. So a big shout out to Anne who shared some ideas, and we are definitely considering those ideas. So we'll let you know when it comes to life. I like that one about brain drain because sometimes I feel my brain is just drained. Although I'm not quite sure that's what she was talking about.
No,
right?
that's not what she was talking about. But we also have a few negative comments every once in a while.
Oh.
So I want to read to you this one and then you tell me what you think,
sure.
okay?
Go for it.
She's got this invisible megaphone, referring to me, jumping in at every chance. Poor Steve, his eyes are practically screaming, help, someone, save me. So I seem to be giving off this she's the boss vibes, according to someone on YouTube. Do you think so?
Well, a fact is a fact. She is the boss. She's the boss of the whole podcast team. So she is the real boss. So in that sense, she's giving off the right vibe.
Okay, but I'm not your boss.
You're one of my bosses. I just get bossed around by a lot of people, that's all.
Okay, but pinky promise, I'll try my best not to jump in and
no problem.
interrupt you.
But regardless, we value those comments because sometimes, everybody likes different things about the way we host. So no one's perfect for everyone. So thank you for that comment.
Yep.
And speaking of jumping in, let's get cracking on today's discussion. It's about food poisoning. Food poisoning. Most of us have had it at least once or twice before, but at which point is it not your fault, but the food caterer or the food source? Is that the problem?
Yes. So I've learned that food, even if it looks and tastes okay, may not be okay.
Oh.
It might have something quite terrible called E. coli. And recently, we've had some very serious cases of food poisoning. Right?
Yeah, that's right. It made the news. Stanford Catering Services was suspended after 51 people were affected after eating food at an event. There was also the company Bite Dance. They cater food in. 130 people fell ill after that meal as well.
Yeah, that story really made its rounds on social media, right? People were running to the toilet and the whole place was really not
a big bite out of that dance party.
That was quite bad. Overall, the number of foodborne illnesses cases related to outbreaks in Singapore is actually quite low, Steve.
Yeah.
SFA estimated that in 2023, there were 22.5 cases per 100,000 people.
Whether it's just one or two people, nobody wants to get food poisoning, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
With our favorite foods on our tables and coming from all sources, we got to chat about this. And joining us in studio today, we have Dr. Richard Kaur, Deputy Director with the School of Applied Science in Nanyang Polytechnic. He's more than 15 years of food safety management and lab accreditation experience too.
Thanks for having me.
And Chris Lowe is joining us as well. She's Creative Director of Purple Sage and Russell Catering, and she has over 20 years of experience in the industry.
Hi, everyone. We mentioned before, the rate of foodborne illnesses, which basically is food safety, is quite low. But then we've got all these terrible cases. So how does an outbreak like that happen where hundreds of people fall ill?
Richard.
So there are a few reasons for that. Most of the time is due to the food handlers, due to lapses that happens when the food handlers didn't practice good hygiene practice. That may cause contaminations of food, whether it's end products or causing cross-contaminations of raw ingredients with the ready-to-eat food. But sometimes, very rare in Singapore, that is due to the source of your raw ingredients may have been contaminated, and when you actually eat them in a very minimally processed, that means you don't use high heat to treat them before you actually serve them, and if they are contaminated, then it may cause
You mean like salmonella?
Sushi, sashimi, and oysters, those kind of higher risk food. If you just get one contaminations and you can't see them, like what you mentioned earlier on, because these are microorganisms. You have a look, they look normal to you.
They smell good.
It smell okay.
So in that case, the problem is from the source, but you're saying more often than not it's from the process.
Yes.
How the food is cooked, maybe where it's stored, maybe the food handlers didn't wash their hands, things like that, right? Those little things also are a bit hard to know when it happens, right?
That's why sometimes it comes unnoticed. You won't realize because some minor lapses may happen along the way. Or I forgot to wash my hand before I touch the food ingredient or end product. Then it just happens. So the incidents happen. That's why it's very rare. In the case.
But Richard, let me ask you: can the food taste good, taste fine, but be contaminated?
Yes, it may be. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, now we got to ask you, because you just sharing about your experience of having eaten some sauce food, as we've just defined it. You had oysters, right?
Yes.
And that got you into a bit of trouble too.
Yeah, so I was just discharged actually last week. But anyway, back to your question, I totally agree with Richard's answer. Now, I think a lot of time food poisoning happens because of the work processes and the workflow is being compromised. Besides, the food handlers themselves probably may not observe the proper food hygiene, but they may also compromise on the work processes. Example, if let's say the order is the last minute and the business operator decided to take it, instead of thawing it in the chiller for like one day, they couldn't defrost it quick enough, right? Example, for the poultry, they defrost it maybe in the open air or things like that. So contamination can happen. Or probably they did not clean the equipment with the sanitizer.
Right.
And as such, the equipment become contaminated with bacteria. So it multiply over time and the poultry or the meat that's been put inside get contaminated.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are many avenues for the contamination to occur, but isn't there a process at all catering companies? Isn't there a workflow that they are supposed to do?
Yes, definitely there is a supposedly standard operating procedures, SOP, to follow. But you know, sometimes when it comes to peak periods, it comes to last minute orders, you may have food handlers, they may compromise on processes.
Meaning they're
take
cutting.
shortcuts.
Yeah, shortcuts.
Which is quite normal, right?
Quite normal. So this is an accepted norm in the industry?
It's not
It
acceptable.
should not be, right? Because you are dealing with food.
Correct,
right?
exactly. We're talking about things that's going into the stomach. We're talking about health at stake. That's
Okay.
why you should not. I caution to clients that please give caterers ample notice. Don't give them last minute increase in packs. Then when they can't do it, you say, hey, why you couldn't do it? We're all having food safety at the back of our mind.
But okay, I want to ask you the difference between catering and restaurant food. I think there's a difference, right?
Totally different.
Yeah, because you are packing well ahead of an event. I sometimes see that you only can consume between 2 to 4
It's
p.m.
a 4-hour
Correct.
window, right?
Yes.
But then the
Correct.
food is like so much food and it looks good, so people take it back.
Yeah.
No, it can't.
Can't.
You can't?
We tap out and bring home.
As a standard practice, we do not give takeaway boxes to
Yeah.
clients because it is beyond the stipulated consumable time.
No. So legally,
No.
you cannot encourage or,
We
but,
don't
but,
give.
But Richard, let me ask you honestly, if I bring food home, I reheat it, is it really going to get me sick? Or
Well,
can it actually be safe?
You never know. By right, you shouldn't take food that is between the so-called danger zone temperature, which is between 4 to 60 degrees Celsius. And unfortunately, that's room temperature, whereby catered food are actually served. So if you decided to bring back at your own risk, even if you reheat, if the food is contaminated during the 4 hours danger zone period, then you may not have reheat enough time or temperature high enough to kill whatever contaminated bacteria. So we don't advise you to do that. We never provide tapao box to bring back.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. But this won't stop people. I mean, so especially for certain types of food, right?
Yes.
Maybe the meats and the poultry, perhaps not, higher risk of being contaminated.
But then you can't avoid environmental contaminants. So when food is served in an open space, and then there may be contaminating microorganisms
Somebody
from
might
the
sneeze
environment.
into it.
Sneezed
Yeah.
over
You
it.
see, when someone has Staph aureus, they just sneeze, that tray will be contracted with us. Anybody who have norovirus, touch the tongs is also contacted with norovirus,
Okay,
and
okay.
it can be transmitted just like that. That's why, as part of buffet catering, for safety measures, we always tell people, do advise your guests if they're unwell, do notify the organizer, okay?
Okay.
So that we know that in this crowd, there are actually unwell people, okay? And maybe may want to isolate them so that they don't sneeze in the food, they
But-
don't hold the tongs,
Yeah, no, fair
But
enough,
that's
Chris.
going quite far, right? Sometimes you have a little, sore throat or something.
Yeah.
Human carriers, bacterial carriers is really...
No, we know. It's like the
really
flu
cannot.
spreading, right?
Yeah.
It spreads so easily.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
in this case, what we're talking about is different because the difference between getting the flu and getting food poisoning. I may get the flu. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
it-
blame the catered food. It's
Might
when I
get
get
fall
food
sick.
poisoning. Yeah, but different. Now we're talking about food poisoning.
I ever spoke to a food scientist also. He said that just a sneeze on the food, the bacteria will germinate. So when it germinates, it can be transmitted and translated later into a food poisoning.
Is that true, Richard?
If
flu
you
bug
give them enough time to grow, then it can actually
but that's
cause
a lot of
problem.
time, right? You and I have done experiment before
yes,
food. I mean, we're
correct.
talking like letting it grow on the food takes time. It's not an instant.
Yeah, so most of the time it's due to the contaminants already there. So
Okay.
that's why it's not just hot food, cold food also. If you don't keep cold food cold, it's the same thing. No
Yeah,
matter what,
yeah.
whatever food is not safe to actually consume beyond the
Dry
the
biscuit.
Okay, if you want to go down that path, then
Okay, that's
Nobody will come to your buffet. Okay, so there appears to be three main challenges for some of these catering companies, right? So Chris, manpower is one, lack of time for preparation, which is what you talked about, and cost. Okay, manpower is one of the things you mentioned. When you don't have enough people, for example, when your processes are not done according to the standards that are set. All these guys go through training, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so what's the issue with manpower? What's the main challenge you face as a caterer?
I think manpower problem will occurs when during peak period, when you have extra orders, then you start to use maybe part-timers to come in to perform the duties. But again, it really depends on the company. Like for us, we automate a lot of food recipe in equipments. We also have a pool of regular part-timers with us where we actually screen them according to their experience and also their food hygiene cert, also their health status. Then they are working with us on a very regular basis and they do not need to have very good skills because all the recipes are all formulated using machine. Just press a button, one. Okay, roast chicken.
But that's your company because you are a
Correct.
larger caterer. You can automate
Yes.
some of the systems. Some of the smaller caterers may not be doing that, right?
So
They may
we-
manually be doing
correct.
everything.
So that is a very big major problem when you do not have automation in the system.
So automation
Yeah.
helps, but you still need people, right?
Yes.
Especially when you're catering to big groups. Do all of them have to go for this food course?
Yes,
Food
yes.
safety?
Have to.
Supposed to, right?
They have
Yeah.
Okay, but in
I
rea-
gone for it too.
You have?
Because I did a show and I worked at the Thai Fan stall, and just to work for that one day, I had to go for the very basic food safety course.
What did they teach you?
How to store raw food, how to wash your hands, and how you got to separate the different types of raw and cooked food.
But is it possible that someone is hired to do the back end stuff, because you can't see, right, who didn't go through the food safety course?
Legally not.
Legally, no, but Chris,
can get
in
into
reality, does it happen?
No, we don't.
No, you don't. Have
Yes.
you? Do you know of
But
other companies
I know
who?
and I saw other caterers have that practice.
You're saying it does happen.
It happens.
When you
It
need,
happens.
like the festive season, you need
Yeah.
extra hands. You would just
Yes.
hire whoever is available, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
Okay.
yeah. We had a
yes.
CNE article where they interviewed someone, a sous chef, basically said that business sometimes they call for hiring on social media. So you get a lot of these young people who come in and then
But most caterers will check even like temporary staff or part-time staff that they have gone through this and have this food hygiene cert, what we call a level 1 WSQ cert. Even if you are just involved in cutting vegetables
Yep.
or scooping dishes at buffet line, it is also required to actually have this cert as well.
I mean, just to be clear, it is illegal. So
Yeah.
if you are caught doing it, and if
Yep.
the company is caught doing it, it is big trouble for them.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah. In fact, SFA, the way they monitor this is quite intense. Sometimes they call out caterers for
Oh, yeah,
very
yeah.
unhygienic, right? The cockroaches or pests and stuff like that. In Singapore, you would think that this is kind of buttoned down, right? I mean, people understand that they have to follow the rules. Why does it still happen so many times?
Well, sometimes it's due to last minute and they may have to actually prepare the orders at the very last minute. Even like thawing of food. You
Yeah.
went through the course. So thawing of food, there is a procedure to follow.
That's right.
But sometimes if you don't have enough time, you thaw it and not thoroughly. And when you cook, you didn't check the temperatures, the core temperatures of the food product. It didn't reach the 60 degree and above requirement. And that may
That's right.
cause higher risk of food poisoning. It's really depending on peak periods and whether orders coming in, you have sufficient time to handle that.
Because otherwise, that hot chick is not so hot after all. I couldn't resist.
Okay. No, okay. I feel like it's very hard to have oversight
Yeah.
over the food handlers, especially when you're running such a big catering company. How do you know when somebody forgot to use his gloves or when he went to the toilet then he didn't wash his hands?
Correct. And sometimes even like it's still a requirement to wear mask or spit guard when
That's
you
right,
prepare food.
yeah.
But sometimes they
They
just
don't.
forgot because they're too busy. They forgot to put on or sometimes they bring it down. This is very difficult to manage. But as far as we can, we will continuously sort of remind them of good food hygiene. So
Yeah.
if there's lapses, then they have to do a refresher
But
course.
Chris, do you do spot checks on your kitchen?
I'm the most unwelcome guest in the kitchen.
Oh, is it? You're the auditor going there. Why like that? Why?
Oh, because I'm a qualified food hygiene officer.
Yeah.
I also watch them through the CCTV. Okay, I do
okay.
surprise checks on the kitchen staff. Of course, I also wear my hairnet, my mask, and they really detest me because I will go around with my maybe glow germ gel.
Glow
germ
germ
gel.
What is that?
Yeah.
Is that like the UV light? Is it
Yes,
to spot?
I will say, okay, I know where are the areas where I think is the highest bacteria, is the most risky area in my kitchen, the cold kitchen. So I'll spot check, I'll ask a few of them, come out. Okay, can you give me your hands? Okay, then I'll
Wow.
spread the germ gel.
Oh, and
on
then
it.
they will glow if they have
Yes.
germs on their hands.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Then
like Criminal Minds.
but it's again, it heightens the food safety. So
that's
you
true.
let them know that, hey, the management is looking at it. It's top down now. Okay? Yeah. So please do not trifle with this food safety.
Yeah.
So
Because-
it's very important.
Yeah, because it affects your business at the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
Because when people fall ill, they are not likely to come back. And
Yeah.
No, you just
correct.
need that one time
Exactly,
that you do it
yeah.
wrong.
Well,
You know,
yeah.
out of the 100 times you did it right. So in that sense, is it possible for catering companies to always have a 100% clean track record?
I would say it's a very difficult to answer question first, okay, because it doesn't mean that food poisoning is due to the caterer.
Yeah.
100%. There are a lot of factors involved. First, it may be because the ingredient source may not be clean. I have seen cases whereby baby squid, it has very high bacteria. Even if you cook it above
Oh.
180 degrees Celsius, you cannot kill it.
But how did you find out that the squid had
I heard it from
bacteria?
another caterer.
Okay, because
Yes.
do the caterers also check the food that comes in?
That's why it really boils down to the procurement policy.
Right.
For our company, we'll request for certificate analysis to see the bacteria count for the batch of the food. But not all caterers practice that. You
Okay.
see? So again, when you ask me whether is it 100% that it's the fault of the caterer or, sometimes it may not
sometimes
be.
it's a food source.
It's
lah.
a food
But it
source.
sounds like a cost issue also, right? I mean, if I have to
Correct.
check at every level,
Yeah. So you need to request for the COA, certificate analysis,
Yes.
when you purchase for a sauce. Sometimes some bacteria which is heat resistant or they form spores like bacillus.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
one particular one, and they can actually withstand high heat, and then they regerminate again.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
what kind of food did those?
this is a superhero bacteria.
Food like fried rice is one particular one that
Oh, no, my
always
favorite.
have these
I think
issues
the
of
cereals
bacillus
fried
cereus.
rice.
Yes,
Oh,
the
no.
cereus.
Okay.
Yes, the cereus botulinums, so on and so forth.
I
So these
see.
are the heat-resistant microorganisms of bacteria that if they are there,
Yeah.
under high heat, they will protect themselves forming spores.
Yeah.
And then when the temperature is correct and right again, they will just
Multiply.
germinate, multiply.
My goodness.
And multiply.
Yes.
But it sounds like there's a full-time job, for
Checking
somebody
on-
to
yeah.
be... Yeah, right?
Actually,
To
so
check.
again, for another show on Talking Point, I remember going to a catering company and following them through their whole system. And they had one guy, a procurement,
Yes.
his job was just to make sure the stuff coming in was good quality,
Yep.
But again, you got to be a large enough company,
Yeah,
right? Because
but it's a
otherwise...
requirement for caterers. That's why she mentions about food hygiene officer.
Yes.
So there's a requirement to actually train at least one of the person in the companies to
Right.
up to the level 4, and they know about food safety
But-
I'm
management
assuming
system.
it's the same with restaurants too, right?
Yes, but for caterers to get the catering license, they need to go
It's a
through this
requirement.
course.
I
It's a
see.
So
requirement.
is it more...
I see.
In fact, it's more stringent for caterers than for restaurants?
It is definitely more stringent.
I just feel like it's really tough to understand when a situation like bite dance happens, right? Hundreds of people get so very sick. Some end up in hospital for days. So you are saying that it really depends on the bacteria.
Correct. Some bacteria can withstand high heat. Some bacteria multiply faster than others. It really depends where the contaminations come from and
Is
how
that-
bad and when it happens.
Right, because we could could also get a very mild tummy ache, right?
Yeah.
If
To be
if you're
fair,
a healthy person, you may not even have a very bad food poisoning episode.
Right.
Yeah, it is usually those who are more immunocompromised,
Like me.
elderly,
In hospital.
or kids. Yes.
yeah, and Chris and her oysters because you didn't drink champagne with it. The alcohol kills germs. You see, yeah.
Chris, you mentioned that when you were talking to us that the clients also need to be educated on food safety, and sometimes we are the ones making difficult demands. This can affect the way of the food is being prepped. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is the role of me as a client? What should I be doing better?
First, the client have to choose a reliable caterer, and also do not ask for unreasonable requests like I want to have my event beyond certain time, and we definitely know that beyond certain time the food will spoil. So you say, oh no, my guests will only come by then, but we can't. So when we tell the client that please adhere strictly to the hours, we hope the client can listen. That's
Okay.
one thing. And then do not give caterer last minute increase in pets. They always say can, but I don't know how they can actually. Yeah. Every business owner will tell you can.
Okay.
But not all caterers are big enough to absorb
Right,
the increase. My kitchen easily we have 2,000 extra of chickens, things like that.
Okay.
But not every caterer has that. Then the next thing is do not have special requests like bring external vendors. I think that's very highly risky.
Okay.
And there's one very
Yes.
interesting point. You know, sometimes when you cater for very high profile events, right? Then they say that, this so-called high profile person is coming in, is going to pass by this catering point. We need your food to be ready by 10 o'clock. But actually consumption time is 12. So how can the food be ready by 10? But because the high profile person need to pass by that place, okay, we need to get it ready.
Why does he need to see the food?
Yeah, he needs to.
To see that it's ready.
Yes. So the thing is, we always advise if the same path has to be used, use separate path, please.
No, I'm thinking if I'm the so-called high profile, I walk by, I'm thinking, wow, so early the food is out already, but we're not eating till 12.
But organizers don't think this way. They say no. Everything has to be
Okay, okay.
ready. It
No,
has to
so
be
if it's
beautiful.
Okay.
ready by 10, it has to be prepped by 6, 7, right? So you're talking about a very long time.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why I always tell them, say, this type of request cannot entertain at all. Please advise them food
You
safety.
ask them,
food
like the
safety.
Japanese restaurant in the window display, the fake food.
Yeah.
You put that one in your catering
they say,
tray. So when
no,
he walks
you-
by, he can see that.
But I tell you, in real life, I'm in this business for 28 years.
Yeah.
I tell you, this is very, very common.
Yeah.
Every year, at least a few times.
For the VIP to see the food?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
they cannot
VIPs
see.
out there who are listening to the podcast, next time you should tell them, I don't want to see the food when I walk by because then I know it's been there for too long.
Have a separate
right?
path. Have a separate
That's
path.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Any last points you would want to share?
Now, remember, catered food not meant to be tapao. So don't bring back. Consume within the 4 hours period.
Unless you're tapaoing within the 4-hour window.
And eat within the 4
Eat
hours
within 4
window.
hours.
Yes.
Wow, very high vibe.
I think this food poisoning thing is a shared responsibility
Yeah.
among a few
That's
parties.
agree.
The caterer, the clients,
that's true.
the authorities, the media also. The media also ought to educate the public. I think it's only through sharing then the industry can raise
improve.
its bar in the food safety.
Yeah.
So food safety is everybody's business.
Yes.
It's not just one person or one party's responsibility.
We gotta just stop being such a cheapskates, you know, because you think about it, that $2 or $5 you save from tapaoing the food may give you one night of pain, So
7 nights for me.
oh yeah,
7 nights for her.
I didn't
No,
tapao
that's
anyway.
But you
okay.
didn't
So that-
tapao.
you never know.
I feel like what we put in our mouths is at the mercy of the guy who makes it. Right? I don't know the process, etc.
Okay.
Just assume, we all assume, food looks great. I'm going to just go for it, right? So this part of that process is so important.
That's right.
Because I have no control as the end consumer. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, no, I agree. But of course, always be a bit more aware. You can take a look at the kitchen, see how they're cooking. If you see the chef walking to the Thai fan stall after the toilet without washing his hands, then you know that is generally not the place you should be eating at. That's it for this episode of Deep Dive. Of course, a shout out to our team, Junaini Johari, Tiffany Ang, Saya Win, To Yen Yuen, and Joanne Chan, and sound mixing by Ken Delbridge.
See you guys next week.
Bye.